Revenge with Karen.
I knew something was off when Evan leaned against my cube wall like he owned gravity itself, sipping from his protein shake with that smug MBA smirk like he'd just reinvented logistics by adding emojis to Slack. "You really want to stay late again, Carol?" he said loud enough for the interns to hear. "It's Friday, not a shuttle launch. This isn't NASA. You're replaceable. That word hit the floor like a loose ceiling tile, and for a second, I just stared at him, my terminal screen still blinking with a live migration queue that he didn't even know existed. Behind him, one of the new hires, a kid with a haircut straight out of a TikTok thirst trap, snickered like Evan just dropped the mic. I didn't say anything. I just clicked save on the redirect script and calmly closed the window. Here's what Evan didn't know. Every Friday night for the last 7 years, I stayed late to run log sanitization, sync checks, and hotfix trials. The kind of maintenance that doesn't show up in team meetings or sprint boards, because nobody outside the server room even knows what unscheduled downtime buffer overflow risk means or cares. But they sure notice when trucks stop moving and warehouses can't scan outgoing pallets. That kind of silence, it screams. That week's job was a storage redirect, moving critical endpoints off a legacy node onto a cleaner distributed loop I tested in staging for 43 days. No fanfare, no applause, just cautious prep. Evan thought my late night request was about overtime. Hell, I would have done it unpaid if it meant avoiding a sink rupture on Monday. But when your daddy owns the company, and your last job was consulting at a startup that folded after 3 months, nuance isn't your strong suit. I calmly explained why it needed to be done after peak traffic. I even offered to document it fully. His response: he laughed and said, "You sysadmins always think the world ends without you. It won't, and maybe that's where it all really started. Not with the code, not with the Friday, but with that moment, that sentence where I realized they weren't just ignoring my work, they were daring it to matter." By the way, if you've ever had your entire project tank because someone in khakis thinks servers run on vibes and vision boards, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And toss a like our way while you're at it. It helps more than you know, and trust me, this story, it only gets worse before it gets satisfying. So I nodded at Evan, not out of agreement, just acknowledgement, like you'd give a goose honking at a storm drain. And I went back to work, clicking through the migration queue, setting it all up so clean and quiet it might as well have been an act of mercy. Around 3:12 p.m., I filed the migration readiness memo, complete with a labeled contingency map and inline comments. I even highlighted the soft shutdown threshold. Sent it to the whole team, CC'd Evan, flagged it urgent. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. No one else responded. At 4:35 p.m., I submitted a simple request via HR to stay late and complete the redirect that night. Just 1 hour. No overtime. A box ticked on a form. By 4:40 p.m., I got a Slack ping. "Come to the breakout room. Now." Evan was waiting, standing like he was about to propose a TED talk. 3 people from facilities were there too, which made 0 sense. "Carol," he said, drawing it out like a toddler trying on his dad's tie, "we're modernizing, cutting bureaucracy. No more lone wolf sysadmin stuff." He made finger quotes around critical migration. "We need to build a culture of trust, collaboration. You'll either adapt," or he trailed off, letting the threat hang there like cheap cologne. I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I just stared at him, and behind the silence I felt it, the soft hum of systems already teetering. He didn't see it. No one did, but I did. I nodded once, excused myself, walked out, not out of fear, out of certainty, because the countdown had already started. At exactly 4:57 p.m., the Cube farm smelled like end-of-week relief, burnt coffee, vending machine chocolate, and that subtle collective exhale of people mentally clocking out. I was organizing my scripts folder. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet wrap-up of a decade of keeping their digital intestines from clogging. That's when Evan showed up again, like a deleted scene from The Apprentice, flanked by 2 interns who looked like they still believed in agile frameworks and trust falls. "Carol," he said, too loudly, "you're done here. Pack your things." He grinned like he was doing me a favor. One of the interns, Tyler or Taylor, or some other alliterative disappointment, snorted. The other looked vaguely uncomfortable. He knew this wasn't standard termination protocol, but didn't want to break eye contact with Evan's Patagonia vest. I didn't cry, didn't even blink. I just stood up, calmly reached into my drawer and handed Evan a plain manila folder labeled in 18-point Arial bold, Transition Risk Report. His smug expression twitched for half a second. He glanced at it like I'd handed him a crossword puzzle in Mandarin. "What's this?" I looked him square in the eye. "That's what's left unsupervised when you remove the one person who understands your hybrid load balancer topology." He squinted like I'd insulted his crypto portfolio. "In English, please." I smiled, just a little. "You have about 15 minutes before your core traffic reroutes through an unconfirmed node loop with no DNS reconciliation. Put simply, the system's going to think it's dying and start eating itself." Tyler, the intern, let out a slow, almost involuntary wait. "What?" Evan waved the folder like it was a napkin at a barbecue. "We've got people. It's not 2003. We'll fix it." I nodded. "Sure. Just make sure whoever reads page 3 knows what a floating subnet map is." He stared. I walked past him, unhooked my lanyard, badge still clipped, and set it gently on the desk. For the first time in years, I felt nothing, no anxiety, no need to warn. I had already done the work. Report had everything. Step by step. Warnings included. It wasn't sabotage. It was pure, surgical truth cut open and labeled. As I walked past the break room, I heard one of the new sales guys yell, "Hey, Carol, happy early retirement." I didn't look back. Down in the elevator, the ride was silent except for the hum of an LED panel. It blinked between floors like a heartbeat, steady and dull. Somewhere upstairs, Evan was probably still flipping through the report, tending to understand it, too proud to ask the junior sysadmin what a log reconciler did. I stepped out into the parking lot, that cursed badge still warm in my palm. The sun was sinking behind the strip mall across the street, subway, vape shop, dry cleaner, like a poetic slap from reality. Outside Holt wears glass doors. I wasn't Carol the sysadmin anymore. I was just Carol. And I didn't feel small, I felt done. As I got in my car, phone buzzed, Slack notification. Then another, then 7 more. I didn't open them. By the time I merged onto Route 82, I knew what they were. Timeouts, failovers, confused pings from people who hadn't spoken to me in months, all wondering why the inventory system was timing out across 3 states, and why the customer dashboard was now defaulting to a black screen with a loop error warning no one could trace. 15 minutes. Not because I wanted revenge, because Evan never opened the brief, because the only thing worse than underestimating someone is firing them without even reading the instructions they left behind. It started with a hiccup, a tiny one. At 5:16 p.m., just 19 minutes after I handed over my badge and walked out like a ghost who finally stopped haunting her own house, a CSR in Chicago pinged the internal help desk with, "Is the client portal slow for anyone else?" No exclamation points, no panic. Just the casual dread of someone who knows when Holtware gets weird, it gets weird fast. By 5:21 p.m., 3 more regions had chimed in. Dashboard loading issues, login delays, API fetches stalling halfway through the handshake. All of it small, minor, but together, it was the smell of smoke right before someone screams fire. Back in the office, Evan apparently laughed it off. "It's always buggy on Fridays," told the team like server errors were just casual allergies. Then he made a joke about Mercury being in retrograde. Someone actually chuckled. The interns nodded, because that's what interns do when the guy who signs their meal stipends tries to look in charge. Except in the background, someone was watching. Josh, one of the new back-end interns, not a total idiot, despite the cargo shorts and ironic mustache, noticed something strange in Grafana. Retry queues were climbing. Not just climbing. Spiking, like a heartbeat trying to flatline and panic slap itself back to life. "Hey," Josh muttered to no one in particular, "why are there 30,000 retry pings from Node C already? It's only been an hour." No one answered. Not really. Another dev glanced up, furrowed their brow, went back to their lukewarm lean cuisine. The Slack ops channel had gone from idle to dripping with thread replies. Stuff like DB1 not responding. And is the load balancer in failover? And who's got Carol's docs? Carol's docs, like they were just a Google Drive link away. Spoiler, they weren't. Meanwhile, I was standing in line at Taco Bell drive-thru. Behind me, someone was playing bad country music through a cracked window. Ahead of me, a mom was handing her screaming kid an issy the color of windshield wiper fluid. My phone buzzed. Once. Then again, and it vibrated so hard I had to flip it face down in the passenger seat just to stop the tremor echo. I didn't look at it, because I didn't need to. I knew. I could feel it. Not just the chaos, but the specific sequence of it. Because here's the thing, when you've babysat a decaying hybrid system for over 7 years, you don't need to sabotage anything. You just stop holding its hand. Stop singing lullabies to the ancient shell scripts duct taped together by 6 different contractors over 3 administrations. You let it walk by itself, and it collapses under its own forgotten sins. Back inside Holtware, someone had finally found my transition folder. Evan barely glanced at it. Does she list what scripts are still active? Josh again. It's all annotated. But it's kinda like code poetry. There's comments that say stuff like, don't wake the sleeping loop, and only pull this pin if you hate uptime. Jesus, Evan muttered. She was a drama queen. Somewhere on a whiteboard, a junior engineer drew a frantic diagram of the routing structure, eyes wide as they realized that half their internal traffic was looping through a deprecated subnet with an unvalidated redirect flag. That flag, it was set to expire today. Friday, 5:45 p.m. Carol had written the cron job to expire exactly 7 minutes after she handed over her badge. Because of course she had. And here's the best part. Nothing was broken. Nothing had been hacked, deleted, or corrupted. It was just unattended. The kind of quiet system decay that only gets noticed when it starts affecting shipping labels and client SLA timers. My phone kept buzzing. Slack pings, missed calls, one message from Josh that just said, "Did you know this was going to happen?" I didn't reply. I just took my Baja Blast, drove to the overlook near Lake Ridge, and watched the sun set behind the water tower. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was something quieter, something heavier. The kind of calm that comes after you've warned them, after you've left breadcrumbs in neon paint, and after they lit the damn trail on fire anyway. They thought I was replaceable, that I'd become the gravity. And without me, things were starting to float away. At exactly 6:02 p.m., the first truck driver called dispatch screaming that his tablet showed manifest missing and the barcode scanner wouldn't sync. 3 more calls came within 5 minutes. Then 9. Then a full 52 incoming lines lit up red across Holtware's National Call Center like a Christmas tree on fire. No one could print anything. Orders were showing as fulfilled with no routing data. The warehouses, 10 of them, coast to coast, were grinding to a halt with trucks full of time-sensitive freight and nowhere to send them. At HQ, the sound of panic was oddly sterile. Just the clicking of desperate keys, phones ringing unanswered, and the heavy silence of people realizing this wasn't a glitch. It was a breakdown. Evan, meanwhile, was pacing like a man trying to outwalk his own reflection. It's just a Friday bug. We've had those before. A junior ops lead said quietly, not like this. Evan snapped. It's a legacy issue. Carol had her hands in all kinds of old systems. Just patch it. Patch what exactly? Someone asked. That's when Devin, the junior sysadmin Carol had personally trained for 2 years, finally spoke up. He'd been quiet all day, lurking in the background, trying to avoid the blast radius. But now his screen showed a cascade of error logs referencing a deeply buried script dependency. Heartbeat sync legacy 1422. "Jason, I think she left something behind," Devin said, voice thin. "Something intentional." Evan whirled. "What do you mean intentional? Like a bomb?" "No," Devin said, "like insurance." He hesitated, then opened his personal Signal app, one Carol had told him to install after an especially bad patch day 6 months ago. He scrolled past old snippets, old jokes, Carol's clipped, dry sarcasm. And then he typed, "Carol, it's Devin, everything's failing. They're blaming legacy bugs. I found a script in Heartbeat Sync. It loops to line 1422, but it's encrypted. What am I looking at?" Her reply came almost immediately. "Check line 1422. That was it. No warmth. No instructions. Just 4 words." Devin obeyed. He opened the old script, scrolled past auto pings and deprecated fallback instructions. Then he hit 1422. It wasn't code, it was a comment. // if you're here, it means they cut me loose before I could finalize the redirect. This is the skeleton key, but use it wrong and it'll trigger a recursive failover. If you don't know what that means, stop now. Tell Evan to call me. If he refuses, walk. You're better than this. Devin's hand hovered over his mouse. Around him, people were yelling. One project manager was in tears because a retail client threatened legal action over a missed shipment window. Another exec was on speakerphone with a warehouse foreman shouting, "Just print something. Anything. Use paper towels if you have to." Evan stormed into the room. "What's the fix?" Devin didn't answer. "Devin." He turned, finally, and said quietly, "She left documentation, but it's written like a riddle. If we guess wrong, the system loops itself into cold shutdown. I don't think she did it to hurt anyone. I think she did it to protect us. From you." Evan's face went red. "You think she's some kind of guardian angel? She's a disgruntled sysadmin with a god complex." "No," Devon said, standing slowly. "She's the only reason this place didn't fall apart sooner." At that moment, I was home. Not pacing, not smirking, just standing at my sink, washing out a coffee mug that still had the company's old logo from 2014. My phone buzzed again. Devon's message. I didn't open it, because all of this was the consequence they'd earned by ignoring not just my warnings, but my design. The system was still running on my spine. And now that I was gone, they were trying to read the bones without a map. They wanted fast fixes. But what I'd built wasn't a switchboard, living thing. And without care, it would rot exactly where it stood. They had the clues, they just didn't have me. The old man was chopping onions when his phone rang. Not his personal one, the legacy landline mounted next to the fridge, the one that hadn't rung in years unless someone at Holt were really, really screwed up. He wiped his hands on a dish rag and answered with the same voice he used when vendors tried to upcharge him on freight quotes. Calm, flat, dangerous. "Yeah, Dad," Evan's voice cracked. "We've got a situation." Of course they did. What kind? The staging database overwrote production. A long pause. "You mirrored staging onto production?" Evan's breath hitched. "It wasn't intentional. I think one of the redirect scripts didn't gate the push properly. Everything's crashing. Client files, logs, shipping manifests, all of it's just gone or jumbled. We can't tell what's real anymore." Father closed his eyes and said the quietest, coldest words to ever hit Evan's ego like a lead pipe. "Where's Carol?" Evan paused, then lied like he always did when cornered. "She quit." Another silence. This one longer, more lethal. "Carol doesn't quit," the old man said. Evan tried to recover. "No, I mean she left. Said she didn't feel appreciated or something. She had this attitude lately, like she was above everyone, refused to adapt to our new collaborative structure." "Did you fire her?" "She didn't say the word fired." "Jesus Christ, Evan. I have it under control." "No," his father said, voice now cutting through the phone like a bone saw. "You don't." Across town, I was sitting at my kitchen table, eating reheated chili from a thrifted mug and watching a raccoon try to break into my trash bin for the third night in a row. The window was cracked open. Cold air drifted in. Somewhere on the street, a dog barked at absolutely nothing, like it knew the whole world was one bad packet away from collapse. My watch buzzed. Not a call, not a Slack message, just a silent, coded ping. Node 7 fallback initiated. Manual override request denied. I smiled, took another spoonful of chili, watched the raccoon flip my trash lid like it owed him money. That was the third fallback attempt. The system had tried to fix itself. It followed the built-in contingencies I'd architected, hand-tuned, encrypted, and annotated with a deep-seated paranoia only 7 years of executive budget cuts and agile workshops could justify. The fallback failed because I'd disconnected the override keys before leaving. Not in malice, just in honesty. Because when they said I was replaceable, I believed them. I let go, removed my name from the auth maps, left behind clean scripts and redacted breadcrumbs, and one final integrity check, coded into a heartbeat signal that only pinged devices registered under my internal ID. They never asked how many systems still required my signature. They just assumed it would work. Meanwhile, at Holt, where HQ, the junior devs were pulling all-nighters. Evan was rage-refreshing his email and insisting that production staging inversion wasn't a big deal. When the first client threatened to break contract and the second one demanded a penalty clause execution, the board started asking questions. And the founder, the man who built Holtware with calloused hands and sleepless nights, was already on his way. He'd made a lot of mistakes in his life, gave his son too much rope, let modern management dilute the backbone of the company he built. But one thing he never did: underestimate the woman who kept his system alive during 3 server migrations, 4 cybersecurity audits, and a ransomware scare that could have leveled them back in 2019. He didn't need a PowerPoint to understand what was happening. He needed Carol. And he knew, without a doubt, that Carol wasn't coming back, not to clean up someone else's ego. Not this time, not unless she wanted to. Saturday morning, office smelled like desperation and vending machine breath. Evan showed up in joggers, and a Holt where hoodie, face blotchy, hair unwashed, eyes red not from grief, but from the kind of panic that hits when your daddy's company might die on your watch. The junior sysadmins were already on their fourth energy drink. Devin had slept in a conference chair, shoes off, face pressed against a throw pillow that still smelled like budget hotel shampoo. Someone was crying in the bathroom. Someone else was Googling what is a class action clause. Evan burst into the war room like a man with a plan. "We're restoring backups," he barked. "Calling DigiSave now." Devin looked up. "You might want to check the replication logs first." But Evan was already on speaker with the backup firm. "DigiSave rep, sir, your last successful replication to our offsite was 1 moment 9 days ago." Evan blinked. "That's not possible. We do dailies." "Correction," rep said politely. "You did. Someone paused the sync job last Friday. It's marked as a scheduled full node test. Do you want to resume it?" Evan's voice dropped half a pitch. "Why the hell would anyone pause it?" Devin cleared his throat. "Carol, are you telling me she stopped our backups?" Evan snapped. "No. She paused them for a node integrity test. It's actually standard protocol if you're testing redirect pathways. Isolate active replication so you don't corrupt production." She documented it. "Sent an email. Then find the damn email." "We can't." Devin hesitated. "She deleted it from the shared thread when she left." "She can't do that." Devin looked at him. "She had master-level access. She could do anything." The room went cold. Evan turned back to the speakerphone. "How much data are we talking?" "Well," the rep began, "you had a massive surge in transactional volume last weekend, right?" "Yes," Evan snapped. "We ran a 72-hour promo across 3 platforms. Then you've likely lost all customer confirmations, financial logs, and warehouse coordination data since last Friday." The silence was nuclear. No weekend sales, no fulfillment logs, no receipts, no tracking. Gone. By noon, client account managers were fielding furious calls from e-commerce partners whose orders were now marked as phantom confirmed. One retailer asked if Holtware had been hacked by a drunk intern. Another just threatened litigation. Evan sat down, hard like someone unplugged his spine. He whispered, "We need to call her." But no one moved, no one reached for a phone. Because by now they all understood Carol wasn't going to answer. And if she had wanted to sabotage them, she could have wiped everything, crashed systems, injected actual malware, left them bleeding from every API. But she didn't. Systems weren't broken. They were just absent, like a mother who stops reminding you to wear a seatbelt, like a lighthouse that turns its beam off not to sink the ships, but because no one ever looked up to thank it. At home, I was reorganizing my tool shed, wiping grease off my old soldering station. I hadn't used it in months, but there was something comforting about the smell of warm circuitry and cracked rubber gloves. My phone vibrated. Devin, again. His message, "Backups are gone. Everything from the promo weekend. Evan's losing it." I stared at the screen, and for just a moment, a real moment, I felt it. The guilt, the sharp little sting in the back of the throat. I didn't want people to lose jobs, didn't want clients to suffer. I just wanted them to realize what they'd lost, not the data, me. The systems were still mine. Even in their failure, they wore my fingerprints like a watermark. Every crash had my shape in it. Every fallback had my handwriting. And every hole they found, that was where I'd stopped catching them. I didn't destroy Holtware. I just walked away. And for the first time in years, it felt like peace. By Sunday morning, Holtware had officially hit the 5-alarm stage of collapse. The whiteboards were full. The floor smelled like cold pizza and cheap coffee, and the CTO had been spotted crying in his car behind the building. That's when Evan brought in the consultants. 2 of them, fresh from some firm with a name like Cypher Vista or Hawkline Strategies, names that sound confident until you see the guys behind them fumbling through your terminal like they just learned what a subnet mask is. They arrived with rolling backpacks, Bluetooth headsets, and the kind of fake cheer you only get from people billing $400 an hour while trying not to throw up from panic. "Don't worry," said the taller one. "We specialize in disaster environments." The shorter one, Vijay, added, "We've handled Tier 1 collapses. Ransomware, insider sabotage, even a government contract that accidentally deleted its own HR system." Evan clapped them on the back like he'd just hired SEAL Team 6. But within 20 minutes, both men were pale, blinking at the cascading architecture map Devin had printed out and hung on the glass wall like a crime scene. "So, just to clarify," Rick said slowly, "you're saying everything, order flow, inventory tracking, client API authentication, is still routing through a deprecated subnet Carol flagged for replacement over a year ago?" Devin nodded. "And you let her leave with master access revoked, without replacing those routes. Evan's jaw clenched. She was supposed to have migrated them already. She lied. Vijay squinted at the spaghetti diagram on the glass. No, she didn't. Look at the call notes. She logged and timestamped every delay. Your sign-off approvals were missing. That's not sabotage. That's ignored protocol. Rick leaned closer to the dependency chart and whistled. This is recursive spaghetti. Every fix you apply triggers 3 broken branches upstream. It's like she nested the whole system in concentric dependencies. You unplug one and 2 others collapse. Can't we just locate the decryption script for the legacy nodes? Evan snapped. Devin winced. That's the thing. Can't find it. What do you mean you can't find it? We found references to it. Dozens. It's called Heartbeat Auth but it's not in the repo, not in backups, not even in her personal sandbox. Maybe she renamed it, Vijay offered, or buried it in an isolated partition. That's when Josh, the intern with the cargo shorts and permanent sunburn, muttered just loud enough to be heard. She said something once about heartbeat pings. Everyone turned. What? Evan asked. She said the system doesn't trust users, it trusts patterns. Like she programmed certain systems to only respond to heartbeat pings. Rick frowned. Like biometric rhythms, Josh shrugged. More like device-based tempo. She had this old smartwatch, never took it off. Said it was her dead man's switch. I thought she was joking. Vijay looked sick. Are you telling me the decryption script might only unlock if a specific ping sequence, tied to her personal device ID, is detected? Devin just nodded. Meanwhile, I was walking through Oak Ridge Park, leaves crunching under my boots, earbuds in but playing nothing. Just silence. Just the hum of wind and the distant bark of some overexcited terrier losing its mind at a squirrel. And beneath it all, my smartwatch pulsed once, then twice, like a phantom heartbeat. They'd tried another override. Probably forced a system-wide key rotation. Wouldn't work. The systems were built to reject unfamiliar rhythms. It wasn't paranoia, it was protection. I didn't smile, not really. I just sat down on a bench near the old water fountain and took out a granola bar. Back at Holt, where the consultants were spinning. Vijay suggested a total system rebuild from clean backups. Devin quietly reminded him there were no clean backups. Rick proposed a fallback to analog, whatever the hell that meant, was promptly ignored. Every fix triggered another failure. Every attempted reroute looped them back into a dependency Carol had either deprecated, encrypted, or never documented in full. Because she hadn't built the system to be immortal. She'd built it to be stewarded. And without her, it was rejecting them, like a body rejecting a transplant. They could patch, they could reboot, they could throw money at consultants until the sun exploded. But without the heartbeat, system would never trust them again. By 7:40 p.m. on Sunday, Holt Ware's boardroom smelled like nervous sweat and cold, rotisserie chicken from a failed catering tray. The emergency meeting was called with 6 hours' notice. Half the members were still in travel clothes. One wore mismatched socks, and the CFO looked like she hadn't slept since Q2. The CEO, James Holt SR, had flown back early from a charity gala in Aspen, walked into the boardroom like a man preparing to sign his own death certificate. He didn't shake hands, didn't sit, just dropped his briefcase onto the table and asked, in the voice that once made venture capitalists gulp water too fast, who revoked Carol's cloud admin credentials. The room froze. Evan, who'd been trying to blend into a beige corner like a nervous fern, finally mumbled, I did. She was overstepping. James blinked once. Explain, she had control over everything, even things she wasn't assigned to. I asked her to delegate, but she wouldn't. She acted like she owned the infrastructure. Someone coughed, not a cold, a warning. That's when Madeline, the only board member who actually read the weekly risk assessments, pulled out a printed audit log. She slapped it down on the table, redacted, annotated, highlighted in surgical precision. She didn't act like she owned it, Evan. She did. Names on every compliance renewal for the past 6 years. Every SOC2 cert. Every multi-region deployment. Every vendor SLA. Every client uptime clause. Every single one. Evan flinched. She didn't share that responsibility. She wasn't allowed to, Madeline snapped. Because your father kept slashing the IT team's budget and funneling it into sales strategy pilots. James didn't say anything, just picked up the log and stared at it like it might apologize. And do you know, Madeline continued, who signed off on the 2019 infrastructure isolation policy that protected this company from the blue cipher breach that nearly bankrupted Apex Logi. Everyone waited. She did, she answered herself. Carol. And not only that, she predicted the failure vector 6 months before it happened. Someone else slid a screen forward. Was the internal incident report on Friday's staging push overwrite. The notes were brutal. Unauthorized admin reroute attempt, failed decryption access, checksum mismatches, systemic rejection of override credentials. The lead incident reviewer had written in plain English. The system architecture is rejecting command structures from any user who is not Carol G. That includes senior admins. The system doesn't recognize current credentials as valid. James looked at Evan. You didn't just revoke her access. Evan swallowed. I deleted her profile. Silence. You deleted the one person the system trusts? I didn't think, no, Evan, you didn't. Across town, I was sitting on my porch with a cup of lukewarm tea, wrapped in a hoodie older than their new CTO. The sky was purple-black, the air damp, headlights rolling lazily down the street. My cat was trying to murder a moth against the window pane. I was enjoying the peace that only arrives when everything behind you is burning and you're just done watching. My phone buzzed once. LinkedIn. I opened it. Hey Carol, big fan of your incident handling at Holtware. I'm the CTO at Atlas Freight. We're rebuilding our backend and could really use someone with your expertise. Let me know if you're open to a conversation. No emojis, no buzzwords, just quiet recognition from someone who knew what it meant to hold the line, while the rest of the building chased KPIs and motivational posters. I didn't respond. Not yet. I just stared at the message, then looked up at the stars. Back in the boardroom, James finally spoke, voice low and firm. Do we have any system left that she didn't architect? Devon, who'd been brought in to answer tech questions, swallowed hard. No, sir. Even the ones she didn't build. Run through the ones she did. So what can we recover? Devon hesitated. Whatever she documented. And what if she didn't? Then we can't. James stood there for a long moment. Then he slowly sat down at the head of the table. And the truth finally hit all of them at once. Carol hadn't been a technician. She hadn't been support. She hadn't been replaceable. She was the system. They just hadn't noticed until she was gone. Monday morning started not with a crash, with a blink, a soft, polite system notification. It didn't scream. It didn't flash red or shake anyone's screen. It simply appeared across every terminal, every client dashboard, every internal monitor like a church bell that rings once before the fire consumes the steeple. Node authentication failed. Master sync disabled. No option to dismiss. No retry button, just the words. And then, nothing. Devon was the first to notice the eerie silence. The room, usually full of beeps and clicks and the soft hum of transactional traffic, felt vacuum-sealed. Even the coffee machine had stopped hissing, like it too was holding its breath. He whispered, "What the hell just happened?" Rick, the overpriced consultant, looked like he'd just been slapped with a frozen trout. It's not just a failover, it's a root-level rejection. The system just shut the gates. Why would it do that? Evan barked. Vijay, pale and sweating, read the logs aloud. Heartbeat pattern invalid. Node trust revoked. Master sync terminated. Evan's voice cracked. So, reset the master. Re-establish sync. You don't get it, Rick snapped, panic now replacing polish. The master node doesn't exist anymore. It's offline, it's gone, and the secondary nodes, they were slaves to that sync key. Without it, they don't know each other exists. Devon whispered, it killed the brain. And then came the noise. Phones exploding off the hook. Clients screaming. Emails pouring in, subject lines in all caps. Order system down, can't log in, error 503 worldwide, refunds. Where's our data? In the boardroom, James Holt stood facing the wide office windows, watching the city start its week like any other Monday, oblivious to the digital avalanche behind him. He turned slowly to Evan, who looked like a man waking up inside his own funeral. What did she say? James asked quietly when she left. Evan's lips moved. No sound. Then she said, good luck. James nodded once, not angry, not surprised, just accepting. Outside, teams scrambled. Tickets surged. The consultants were muttering about disaster declarations and insurance clauses. Someone from legal asked about client indemnity. HR started drafting an internal email about unexpected challenges. But none of it mattered, because what shut down wasn't just a system. It was the system, one Carol held together with late nights and code rituals. The one she wrapped in fail-safes not to protect herself, but to protect the company from its own ignorance. The one that, when finally asked to choose between logic and trust, chose neither. It simply stopped listening. Somewhere else, miles away, and a million light-years from the noise, Carol sat across from a panel of 3 interviewers in a sunlit room. The windows were wide open. He's lifted the ends of her scarf. The woman in the middle, a VP with kind eyes and no tech jargon in her questions, asked, "What was your role at Holtware?" Carol paused, not for effect, just to consider whether she even needed to answer that anymore. She smiled. "I kept everything alive, until I didn't. No vengeance. No burn it all down swagger, just consequence." She didn't press a button, didn't destroy, she left. And gravity remembered who it used to orbit. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.